What if I told you that the world's biggest rainforest could disappear overnight? How do you think our planet would react? Would we be able to survive without the vital role that the Amazon plays in producing oxygen for us to breathe? In this video, we are going to explore what exactly would happen should the Amazon rainforest wake up one morning to find itself gone, vanished into thin air, leaving behind nothing but a vast, desolate wasteland. But before we begin, if you like optimistic science videos, subscribe so you can be notified of future uploads. Also, please click the like button because that helps the algorithm know that you enjoy our content and want to see more of it. Thank you. So let's start by getting some facts straight. The Amazon is not the largest rainforest on Earth, despite it being the most famous and also the one that most people assume is the largest. As a matter of fact, it isn't even close. That title belongs to the Atlantic Forest, which is located in the northeast of Brazil and covers an area of 2 million square kilometers, roughly the same size as the entire country of Mexico. The Amazon, on the other hand, is approximately half the size at 1.1 million square kilometers, a little bigger than the US state of Florida. However, with 60,000 different species of plants and animals living within its vast domain, the Amazonian is indeed the most biodiverse rainforest on the planet. The Amazon River Basin covers nearly 7 million square kilometers across 9 different South American countries, making it one of the largest river systems on Earth. It contains 20% of all known animal species, including over 3,000 kinds of freshwater fish. Additionally, 90% of the people who live there are indigenous to the region. In addition to being the most biodiverse place on Earth, the Amazon is also responsible for producing around 20% of the world's oxygen supply. But don't worry too much about that. Even if the Amazon were to disappear tomorrow, we humans would still have plenty of oxygen to go around. We may even have extra to spare. You see, while the trees in the Amazon do play a big part in replenishing our oxygen stores, they are by no means the sole source. Photosynthesis is not exclusive to the Amazon. Every green plant on Earth, from the tiniest blades of grass to the tallest redwood tree, uses photosynthesis to produce energy. And every single one of them contributes to replenishing our atmosphere with oxygen. Plants absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen during the process of photosynthesis. In total, plants capture around 40% of human-generated carbon dioxide emissions and release 3 times their weight in oxygen back into the atmosphere. So even if the Amazon burned down, we'd still have plenty of oxygen to go around. Sure, we might have to tighten our belts a little bit and cut back on things like driving and flying, but we would survive. The real danger in removing the Amazon is the effect it would have on global warming. You see, the Amazon sucks up a lot of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and locks it away either in its biomass or in the ground. There are around 100 billion metric tons of carbon locked in the above-ground biomass of the Amazon, and another 400 billion metric tons stored in the soil. This means that the Amazon is a carbon sink, a term used to describe any natural system that removes carbon from the atmosphere and stores it in solid or liquid form, such as rocks, soil, oceans, and forests. It is estimated that the Amazonian absorbs between 2 and 3 billion tons of carbon per year. Removing the Amazon would cause a major disruption in this balance and increase the amount of carbon in the atmosphere, possibly speeding up climate change. Although the Amazon is a big player when it comes to pulling carbon out of the atmosphere, it is by no means the only one. Forests in general are some of the best carbon storage systems that we have. And thanks to all the photosynthesis that's going on in those leaves, they're constantly topping up our atmosphere's oxygen levels. Trees can store carbon for hundreds of years, although it does eventually make its way back into the atmosphere through natural processes such as decomposition or when we burn fossil fuels. But trees are definitely better at storing carbon than the atmosphere ever was. Scientists estimate that forests contain 4 times more carbon than our atmosphere does. Oceans are another great carbon sink. They take up around 5 times more carbon than the atmosphere. Combined, these two systems, forests and oceans, remove around 30% of human-generated carbon dioxide emissions. So what happens to the carbon that's been stored in the Amazon for thousands of years when the forest is removed? Well, most of it is released into the atmosphere through burning or decomposition, depending on what happens to the forest after it's been cut down. If the trees are left standing but are not properly cared for, they will eventually fall victim to disease or pests, at which point they will decompose and release the carbon that they have been storing back into the atmosphere. On the other hand, if the trees are harvested and used to make things like furniture or paper, then the carbon will remain locked away until those products are eventually thrown away or burned. Because of this, scientists estimate that it would take at least a century for all of the carbon stored in the Amazon to be released back into the atmosphere. The Amazon is home to millions of people, both humans and animals. When the forest disappears, where will they all go? Before we get into that, though, let's talk about what causes deforestation in the first place. Most of the trees that are currently being chopped down in the Amazon basin are being cleared to make way for farmland. In Brazil alone, around half of all cleared land is used to grow soybeans, and the rest is mostly pasture for cattle ranching. Soybeans are used primarily as animal feed for livestock in other parts of the world. So you could say that the beef we eat in the Western world is partly grown on the backs of the Amazon. There are other reasons why people cut down the forest. Illegal logging is a big problem. People also clear land for mining operations and oil drilling. And when towns spring up in the jungle to support the workers who come to harvest these resources, the forest inevitably gets pushed back further and further. Deforestation is also encouraged by government policies that offer tax breaks to companies who convert jungle land into farmland or pasture. If the Amazon were to vanish overnight, it would displace millions of animals and also affect the weather patterns of the entire planet. But what would happen to the people who live there? They would likely flee to nearby cities or towns, putting a strain on those communities' resources. The newly displaced people would be unlikely to find work in these areas since they'd be competing with people who already live there. And because they'd be coming from rural areas, they wouldn't have the skills necessary to find jobs in the cities. The people who live in the Amazon rainforest are generally poor and uneducated, and they would find it very hard to adapt to life outside the jungle. Many of them rely on the forest for food and medicine. And because they are so poor, they would struggle to travel to other areas in search of a new home. The only option left for many would be to stay in the Amazon and try to build a new life there. But doing so would be extremely difficult. The Amazon is home to dangerous predators like the jaguar and biting ants that can cause excruciating pain. Without the protection of the forest canopy, these people would be vulnerable to attack. Also, there are strict laws against building permanent structures in the Amazon. So even if they managed to survive the wildlife, they would still be at risk of being evicted. When the Amazon rainforest disappeared, there would be chaos not just in Brazil but throughout South America. Countries like Peru, French Guiana, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Bolivia, Paraguay, and Suriname would all be affected. There would be mass extinctions of both plant and animal species. Millions of people would be left homeless, and the climate across the world would become drier and warmer. It is important to remember that the Amazon is not just a pretty place with lots of trees. It is a complex ecosystem that supports a huge variety of life and provides us with many essential services such as producing oxygen and storing carbon. So what can we do to protect the Amazon? Well, the first step is to raise awareness about the importance of the forest and the threats it faces. We need to educate ourselves and our children about the Amazon and what we can do to help protect it. We also need to support organizations that are working to preserve the forest and its biodiversity. One great way to do this is to donate money to charities such as the World Wildlife Fund or Greenpeace. These organizations are doing important work to protect the Amazon from deforestation and habitat destruction. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please click the like button and subscribe. Your support helps us to continue producing high-quality science videos.